Bennett.
Daniel, hi.
Hello. Hi.
How are things?
Annoying. Well, I was going to say annoyed. I thought you were going to say how are you? So I was ready to say annoyed. I don't know that things are annoying. I guess they
It
are
can be.
annoying.
Uh,
Yeah. Well,
Every,
it's not things that are
every,
annoying. It's
any,
events. So,
well, yeah, I guess you're right. But our
well, for
events
me
are
anyway.
things, so
I mean, it could be a thing. Like if my phone wasn't working, I'd say that thing is annoying. But in my case, it's I went to the dentist and that event was annoying.
uh, is your dentist's name Crentist?
Uh, yeah, dentist the Crentist. They're all named that actually, or some variation. I haven't been to the dentist in my adult life, essentially. Like it's been a decade, and so I didn't anticipate things going that well. But secretly, I did. I was trying to prepare myself, but honestly, I think I have above average oral hygiene. Like I use a water pick daily. I rinse daily. I use a 3 minute timer twice daily on my Sonicare Black Diamond series. Like it's a
Wow,
yeah, Black Diamond. It's like
that's like the
ultra high
hardest
end.
ski slope
Yeah, it's like I
of
think
your
there's a kind of
mouth.
diamonds that are extra sharp in that I'm assuming.
Hmm.
Uh extra hard and shiny,
Wow, your teeth
flawless.
could cut glass.
Yeah, basically. And so what I was hoping for is to kind of like say, okay, look, I haven't been to the dentist in like seriously 10 years, but they're gonna get that. I want them to say, "Wow, I can't believe that." Because honestly, I look at my teeth and I figured on I could see one little cavity area, which it happens, I guess. Um, and then I anticipated them. I mean, everything else looks good, and that is pretty much. I mean, there was a few more than I anticipated, uh, but it's going to be $580 out of pocket, and that's
Wow,
with insurance, and so that's
for
annoying.
to get the cavities filled.
Yeah, just to take care of it. Plus, they said, and I knew this has been coming for a while. My wisdom teeth they're coming in sideways, so they could be very difficult, and they need to be
Wait,
removed.
you still have your wisdom teeth?
Yeah, I've never had my wisdom teeth taken out,
Jeez.
so.
I mean, most people get them taken out like a lot earlier.
Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, most
Um,
people don't wait until they're our age to have their wisdom teeth taken out. Usually, it just either it's recommended there that you get them taken out earlier, or they start causing problems earlier.
yeah, I don't. That's I guess the thing is they've always said, "Yep, I see them and they're fine," and then it became I see them and keep an eye on it, and then this time they were like, "Yeah, you need to go ahead and get them out." And I honestly feel like I've heard people from all ages. Like I don't think of getting your wisdom teeth as like a 12-year-old thing or
Not a
a 20
12-year
year
old
old
thing.
thing.
Well, yeah, it is
Um,
more like a 20-year-old thing. Like
when did you get yours out?
um in college.
Was how was the experience? Because I
It
hear
was
it
bad.
ranges from like really was whatever, it didn't matter, to like I was fine, I was ready to go to work the next day, to like I was out for 2 weeks. I really have heard that
Um,
sort of extreme end where they were like vomiting for weeks and like
yeah,
felt terrible.
that seems like the range. I would probably be on the lower end of that range. It wasn't. I mean, it definitely wasn't fun, enjoyable, or easy, but it didn't put me out of commission. It was just a very unpleasant experience. Um, a lot of people, they get knocked out. Um, they're unconscious during it, but I wasn't. So I was just on, nitrous and drugs or whatever, and was fully conscious,
Yeah,
listening to music. That's what I did. I
that
put
sounds
on
frustrating to be awake.
put
Ugh.
on headphones and just listen to music, and you're so numbed up and everything that there's not really any pain, but the crunching and all, like, that's just really
Ugh.
pretty unpleasant. uh
It's really
and
the recovery that I'm concerned about too. Like you can weather a bad surgery, but that recovery is what, like, is that what kicks your butt? Like what, like I just want to feel better afterward.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of the reverse. Like, I don't want to go through some traumatic surgery event, especially while I'm awake, to participate in it. But, the recovery, how bad is that going to be? If it's just some dull pain or something, I can deal with that for a few days. My recovery wasn't so, I don't even really remember the recovery being anything that significant. Like, for me, it was just the normal, I guess. Like, have to eat, like, soft foods or something for a day or two, and then you can't drink out of a straw.
I mean, I guess
it's fine.
I should qualify. I definitely don't want to have this terrible traumatic experience, but like I'm more anxious. Look, the new school year is coming around the corner, and like either want to wait till next summer if at all possible. Like I'm going to consult with like an oral height specialist, and he's going to tell me you can wait or you need to do it now or whatever. But I just am anxious about the school year, and the last thing I want is to do it like 2 days before all the kids come back, and then I'm like swollen faced and woozy and have to take a week off the first week of school or something crazy like that. Like, that sounds miserable.
Yeah, you probably. I mean, I guess some people do have worse recoveries. I just think it's pretty rare that you would have to take off a week. You probably take off a Friday and get it done on Friday, and then recuperate over the weekend, and probably be fine to teach on Monday. Or you could just, do a crappy lesson on Monday, and just give some worksheets or teach one of the easy letters of the dictionary, like E or something. There's like plenty of words that start with E. So
plenty of words with E. I could just come up with
them
E
go
words,
wild.
skip to E.
Yeah.
No, I was actually planning on doing crappy lessons all year long, so
right,
it might be a nice tone.
So you could get all your teeth taken out. Why stop with the wisdom teeth then?
Well, I mean, yeah, exactly. I've had 7 good years of teaching, and so it's time to get all my teeth taken out and crappy lessons every day. Like that just sounds like a good plan. Like 7 out of 8 good years. That's
still okay. Anyone would still hire you with 7 out of 8 good years. So
I think so.
Might as well. I mean, like even in a normal week, we have 2 days of the week that are just kind of left for doing whatever, just the weekend. So I would say that out of 7 years, really 2 of those years you should have just been doing nothing.
Right. So I have excess years to waste.
Right.
Yeah, no, the money thing is annoying though, and insurance, and it's confusing because it says it's a $3,000 for, if you look at all the numbers, $290 something, $2,900, whatever. But I'm paying $600, so that makes you feel good that it's $582 instead of paying all $3,000.
Not really.
It doesn't make me feel good.
That's pretty crazy. I didn't realize it was that expensive for just getting fillings done. Or you getting the gold? You must be getting the gold ones. And doing like a grill,
24
getting
karat. I said,
get a grill or something.
Designs.
Are you gonna get some diamond embedded grills so you can use your black diamond Sonicare on them?
I don't know. I don't know how all this works. Except they've scheduled 4 different times. I'm suspicious.
Wait,
of
4 different times? You have to go back 4 times?
Yes, and it's not that serious because it sounds like I have some giant thing, but he's like, no, I just like to do 1 quadrant at a time. I'm like, why can't he just do all of them? And I've thought about this. I mean, this just happened, so I haven't thought about it a lot, but a lot of people cancel. So let's just say it would take 3 hours to do. I don't know how long it would take to do all this, but let's say 3 hours. That seems like plenty of time to fill some cavities. Yeah. But if I canceled on him, which maybe happens quite a bit in dentistry, I feel like people are always moving their dentist appointments around and stuff, that he's lost 3 hours. But if he were to say, here, let's do it in these series of schedules, then he can... I honestly feel like he's doing it for himself and not for me, because me going back and back and back sounds annoying and like... I'd rather just take
inefficient.
It all at once.
I mean...
Yeah, inefficient for him, ultimately, if he could rely on schedule.
You're going to have to get drugged up 4 times instead of 1 time.
Exactly.
I mean, not really drugged,
I mean, it's just numbing, but
nitrous up.
I'd rather not have that stuff. Yeah.
Right.
So
you're going to get...
I don't like it.
Your brain cells
I'm
killed
just
4
irritable.
times.
And I'm bringing it to the podcast, and I hope that it spreads to you, because I just want my anger to fester and make everything worse.
I was trying to think of a good new recurring segment, and one just could be, I haven't thought of a catchy name for it. It could be just like things like Bennett complains or something. Because I complain.
It grinds my gears or gets my goat.
That really gets my gears.
Gets my
really
gears.
Grinds my goat. That's pretty funny.
Really grinds my goat.
Yeah, I guess that has been...
Sounds dirty.
Yeah, it does kind of. Grinds my gooch. I guess that...
I just spit out my water.
You're drinking water.
Yeah. Could you hear that?
Yeah, I could hear.
Kind of laugh.
There goes the
That
microphone.
your mouth is full.
Time to buy fill-ins and a microphone. But I mean, I do kind of complain a lot, but I guess that is sort of a lot of people complain about things, and that's kind of common fare. But
yeah, but it's interesting to think about things that annoy you more than they should. Because if I said
Cyclists.
stubbing my toe annoys me, like whatever. But cyclists, yeah, that's something that maybe annoys lots of people, but you react extra strong to something
I
like
hate
that.
those guys. Man, they
You
really piss
hate
me
cyclists?
off.
Is that really an accurate word? Or they just kind of mildly agitate you for a moment?
So, assuming that they are only a cyclist when they're on their cycle on the road in my way. If it was a person just standing in line behind me at the grocery store and they happened to be a cyclist and I didn't know, then, I wouldn't hate them then.
What if you did? What if they're in that obnoxious...
I wish I knew.
I
wish I knew.
Spandexy thing, That like was always colorful.
Yeah,
and, like,
they should have to be labeled. They should have a big, a red C emblazoned onto their clothes so I know that whenever a cyclist is around so I can just be really mean to them.
The Scarlet Sea.
These are the kind of people probably that in the grocery checkout line anyway would just kind of stand in the middle of the checkout lane and not do anything, not obey the rules. They probably have 30 items in the 15-item line.
So I'm assuming your issue is...
Disregard the people with the carts, the people... They probably walk around with the baskets and, swing the baskets around, and the people with carts are like, excuse me, and they're just like, the aisles are for me and my basket, too. And...
So what I'm hearing is your issue with cyclists is that they have an entitlement attitude on the road.
Yeah, and they don't obey the laws, and they're slow compared to cars.
I don't like when it's very clearly not a heavily trafficked sidewalk. There's no pedestrians walking. It's a smooth, big sidewalk, and they choose to ride in the road as an alternative. Now, I'm sure a cyclist will go, well, that's not safe, or that's not how it's supposed to be done, or whatever, but I don't
Screw
care
you.
if it's a busy
I don't
road,
care.
and there's
Get
no
off the
one on this
road.
big piece that they could be off to the side. Like, no. Or
Roads
if they
are for cars.
Well, they were
bikes.
definitely designed for cars. And what about, are you okay with like a city that makes a big spacious bike lane so that you're not interfered with and they can, everything kind of works out, right? Or are you annoyed some?
No, it's better. I mean, obviously that's better than having them on the road for cars and not for bikes. Better to have a bike lane. Even better to have a whole separate bike path where they're just out of the way. But honestly, sidewalks, that's where they should be. I mean, look, think about it this way. If drivers and cyclists have this headbutting on the road, and cyclists are like, the road can be for cyclists, and people in cars are like, no, the roads are for cars. Why is the same argument inadmissible on a sidewalk? Pedestrians and cyclists would have the same headbutting, and pedestrians would go, the sidewalk's for pedestrians, and cyclists would go, well, we could ride on the sidewalks. The argument is just as applicable in both places. I argue It would be preferable to have the argument on the sidewalk, because if a cyclist hits a pedestrian, then the injuries are like, some bruising and scratching and maybe a broken bone at worst.
Right.
If the interaction goes wrong on the road, then potentially someone could die. So, just stay off the road, get on the sidewalk, and ring your little bells to tell people to get out of the way. Or, honestly,
all cyclists have bells and a basket, I assume.
They should. Yeah, they should.
Some little, what are they called? Streamers on the side of the handles.
Yeah, some
Maybe
streamers.
a baseball card in the spokes.
Yeah, delivering a newspaper periodically as they pass mailboxes. Extra.
Is what cyclists do.
That's how they should be, is off the road, over there, delivering their papers and
delivering the newspapers. And no one reads newspapers anymore,
so there's no need for cyclists. Exactly. I'm glad I've converted you to my side.
Well, you are right that the stakes are just way higher. I mean, a car meets a cyclist, and there's carnage. That's probably where they got the word from.
Probably
carnage. So. And then when it's just a pedestrian, like you said, it's just the stakes aren't as high. Not to mention, I feel like the interactions are going to happen slower with a cyclist and a pedestrian. There's
more time to react, and additionally, so let's imagine someone is walking on the sidewalk and a cyclist is coming towards them. Something has to happen. It's easy for the cyclist to just go slope, and like a bike can ride on grass or dirt and essentially perform just the same. A person can walk on grass or dirt and perform just the same.
So they both have the option of like getting off of the path quickly,
Yeah, making way.
with
They can
no
they can both
issue.
navigate around the obstacle relatively easily. On the road, that's not the case. A car can't exactly just swerve over the curb with. I mean, it can, but not without incurring some damage to the tires or whatever. And that's not to mention things like mailboxes and posts and whatever other
I mean,
things
essentially,
next
a
to the
car
road.
is not. You don't have as much control. Like our body, we are finely tuned to move our bodies, and a cycle is a step removed from that. A bicycle is a step removed from that, but still more navigable than a car. Is like honestly, the front two wheels turn, and that's it. Like that's for this big, several ton machine. Like it's not that nuanced in its maneuverability.
Right.
Yeah. So screw cyclists.
Screw
I'm
cyclists,
convinced. I'm
yeah.
now angry. You're right. It does spread. The anger. It
They're the
feels
worst.
good. It feels really good. They're
It's
terrible.
really bad. I mean, it's the worst when they drive on busy highways that don't have bike lanes or sidewalks or even really a shoulder. So they're just on the road, and they need to make up their mind. Like sometimes they drive like a foot from the edge of the road, but it's just a one lane on each side road, and so you have to sit there and kind of piddle around behind them until, should I pass now? Should I pass now? And if they would just ride in the middle of the road, then obviously you couldn't pass them, but then people would continue to hate them.
Yeah, but they do tease you in the sort of passing, like, why not just get off the road when you notice a car is coming, or avoid very congested areas, because it can't be pleasurable for them. I imagine it's fairly stressful, even if you feel entitled, even if you blah blah blah. Like deep down, there's no way that's comfortable to just be a part of.
Right, I agree, and I try to make it as stressful as possible whenever I encounter a cyclist on the road, just for that
Honking
reason.
horns, yelling, shaking your fist angrily.
Yeah, right. Hopefully to discourage them from continuing their hobby on my roads.
Yeah. Yep.
Honestly, that's the worst thing. But another thing that I see very often is they don't obey stoplights, and stop signs. Like,
so if they're all legalistic about how they're entitled to the road as well, yet they're not legalistic when it doesn't suit them.
Right. Yeah, if I can be so bold as to generalize to cyclists, which I have been anyway, then they're all hypocrites, because they want some laws and don't want others. Like a lot of times I see them at traffic lights, they will if the traffic light is green, then they'll ride through it as if they're a car. But otherwise, they'll wait for the little walking man pedestrian symbol, and then they'll pretend they're a pedestrian for a while and cross as a pedestrian. And that's just some crap right there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, my distaste for them is much milder, but still there. It's because I'm a defensive driver, so I'm always looking for the problems that could occur. And for the most part, you want to be aware of other cars around you on the road, of course. But like, are you really, especially in congested traffic, taking note of the dozens, if not hundreds, of cars around you? You don't have to take account for each one. You just want to notice bad behavior. But when you see a cyclist, for me, I tense. I don't like physically tense up, but I'm on higher alert. So they are disrupting the comfort of my drive. I have to pay attention because they're less predictable. There's always that issue of if I'm going to take a right turn and I'm in an area and like there's a bike lane and I kind of cross over. How does this work? Like, are they? What if they're coming up behind me, or what if I'm coming up to them? Say I'm turning into my place or an apartment complex or something like that, and they're crossing over. There's just a lot of weirdness, and you have to be extra alert, and that's the frustration. So even if you have a polite biker or cyclist, they just make me uncomfortable, and by their very existence. So stop existing, cyclists.
Yeah. Why don't they just get stationary bikes and ride those inside, and then they're not a menace to anyone?
Stationary bikes inside? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like an exercise piece of equipment. I just thought, yeah, they should just do that.
That would be better for everyone.
Why do they even bother making like exercise bikes So oftentimes they'll even put a wheel that will spin. I mean, sometimes they don't, but a lot of gears turn and they make it resemble a bike. I don't know. They could be more inventive. If you're just sitting there and pedaling, I feel like you could get a lot more inventive with the whole construct. And I guess they have.
Well, Daniel, there's no need to reinvent the wheel.
Bazinga! That was good. That's us. And we will shift subjects on that. No.
Are you ready for Daniel Does Science?
Oh my God! Yes. I mean,
I
no,
figure
already.
after you go to the dentist and have kind of an annoying day, I've just worked you up into being annoyed about cyclists, and now's the perfect time to test your knowledge of the universe and how it works.
Ugh, yeah, fine, whatever. Like it's just gonna be embarrassing. Like
maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. I mean, you don't know, but you kind of do. I just don't know.
It depends. I mean, I think I have a pretty good idea. I think I have a pretty good idea about the things that you will and won't know. Like last time when I asked you about the sizes of atoms and stuff, I kind of knew that you would be like, I don't know.
Well, because it doesn't matter to me too. I didn't retain much. Exactly. Like I didn't retain it. Like I can comprehend in that moment but really, and this is my belief about learning in general, is there's got to be interest because there's meaning attached to it. And if it's not meaningful to me, I'm not saying it's not meaningful, like as if I'm some lord of determining meaning. But if it's not meaningful to me, like, it goes in one ear and out the other. And that's just true for everyone. And so, oftentimes, like, I still don't know, like, getting into some of the nitty gritties of science, I don't know much. Hit me with it. What do you got for me?
Because I've already kind of annoyed you a bit, I'll let you choose. Would you rather do biology, Daniel does biology, or Daniel does astronomy?
Oh. Let's do astronomy, because I was a Sagittarius, but
but what?
But
they changed them.
But the astronomical signs all shifted around, and I'm no longer. I don't know what I am now. I'm that new one, and I don't care. And I was making a joke anyway. I know that much, that there's a difference between astronomy and astrology.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we start off real easy and just have you name the planets? You should probably can manage that.
Like there's Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and Earth and Neptune and how many are there? There's like 9 or something. I mean, Pluto. I mean, this is one of those I would.
What about?
I'm not going to go. Oh, I've never heard, or I didn't know that one. I'll just go. Oh, okay. So I would know these. How many did I list? And are there 9 or so? Or 13? Or
you've got
like
6.
Uranus? Are we counting Uranus? No, it is.
You've got 7. Should we count Uranus or no?
Well, I believe so. Wasn't it like it was degraded and then, it was ripped of its status as a planet, and then
someone degraded. Are you what kind of joke? I mean, this is really the lowest of low-hanging fruits here.
It was reinstated,
Someone.
Wait,
they took it out. They took Uranus out, and then they had to reinsert.
They reinserted it back as its status. I really think it was so I think it is. I'm not sure though, or it's whatever. Neptune. I said. Did I say that? Do you know what I've said and not said?
I think so. Yeah, I think you have said 7 planets so far. What about the moon?
No, that's not it's not a planet. It's an orbiting meteor or something. I know it's not, but I know it's not a planet.
Why not?
Moons are its own category. Each planet has some moon. Like some have more than one moon. I know that. I don't know what has what, but I know some will have 2 moons. And it's a trope in sci-fi to have several moons. I think there was some charm added to the world of Star Wars with the moons. Was it just 2 moons? I don't know.
What are you talking about?
In the first Star Wars, A New Hope,
Yeah.
when they showed Luke's homeland, I forget the barren.
Oh, the two moons at Moonset.
Yeah, it was just that always struck me. It was cool to do. It was just a nice piece that adds to the. I'm not going to say ambiance, but almost like the adventure. Like, oh yeah, they're not on Earth, and that was a good reminder of that. Anything they can do, because otherwise it just looked like a desert, like pretty standard desert.
Right.
Good.
Those are bright moons.
Yeah, they were. It wasn't quite sun. It was like sunset. Are you giving me a clue or something?
Just no. I'm just saying those weren't moons.
Oh, in that. Oh, okay. I thought they were moons in that scene.
Those are suns. It's sunset.
It was
two
duals.
suns.
Okay. I just don't remember it that well. Okay. Oh, what am I missing?
You got 7.
Okay, what am I missing?
So what about so you've actually got all the planets from Earth and further out. You're only missing.
Oh, closer.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say Mars? I mean, no. That's the third. That's we're the third planet from the sun, and then Mars is the closest one to us.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on what's closer. Mercury.
There you go. That's it. And then there's one other one.
I know. Something. Is Mercury the closest to the sun?
Mm-hmm.
Mercury. I don't know. I said Jupiter and Saturn and Neptune and
men are from Mars.
Venus.
There you go.
Women are from Venus. Okay.
Got it. I didn't have to tell you any of the planets' names.
You had to give me some clues, but like I
not bad.
Yeah, I would say that's about what the average person would probably, and maybe even better. I don't know. Yeah, makes me want to ask freshmen in high school.
And I guess I will say, since I guess one of our 5 listeners is probably probably complaining that Pluto's not a planet. Pluto is the one that got degraded. Uranus wasn't degraded. It's Pluto that was turned. It's not a planet anymore.
Oh, so Uranus is definitely is on the in. No one's debating the status of Uranus.
Everyone agrees that Uranus is definitely in.
Okay.
High status. High status Uranus. Yeah, so Pluto technically not a planet. Whatever. I still call it a planet because why not? Because it's small.
Well, there's reasons about whether what constitutes a planet. I'm sure definable ones in which they say, oh, and now it's more gas or it's not.
It's not gas. It's rock and ice. It's just small.
Well, what makes a planet a planet? Just like a.
Hey, I'm the one asking questions here.
Oh, okay. It's a good question, though.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. I'm not sure that there is a. I guess there probably is a definition that.
Well, yeah, because the moon's solid, but it's in orbit around us, and we're in orbit around the sun. So if it's in an orbit, if it's big enough to have mass that makes it, the gravitational pull with the sun. And
whoa! What is all this science that you're throwing at me here? You're like a regular old astrologist.
Yes, I am.
Are you Sagittarius himself? Oof. Man, naming all the planets left and right, talking about gravitational pulls and orbits, and
maybe we should switch. Maybe I'm such an expert. We should just go to biology.
Maybe so. So you guessed all the planets. What's the biggest one?
I want to say Jupiter or Saturn. Saturn has the rings around it and is big. I think Jupiter. Jupiter.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And the smallest one?
I mean, I guess it's Pluto.
Yeah. I guess that's easy since we kind of talked about that. Since
that's the one I would have said Uranus. I would have been wrong about that. Which one's the furthest away? Is that Pluto? It must be Pluto too, or I thought it was Uranus. Always thought Pluto. Uranus. So I'm just confusing the two. Like Pluto's the farthest away and the smallest and all of that. Like poor little guy. Like he's just way out there, barely even being counted. He's very cold and
not getting much light.
Yeah, not much light for
barely hanging on.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you.
Okay.
why doesn't the Earth is round, and we have the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere, and gravity pulls everything down. So why doesn't all the water just like drop down to the bottom of the Earth and fall off?
Well, isn't up and down like, I mean, that's kind of like relative. So, uh, there in space, there's no north and south. I don't think we just kind of are relational to other things like the sun.
Well, wouldn't
is
you
our
just
big.
be able to use a compass?
Well,
And the needle,
so
the
this has
needle
to do
would
with.
point you to it.
Well, I have one answer for that: magnets. And magnets do this mysterious thing where it pulls the needle toward north, unless you're in a weird magnetic field and things are going on. So we obviously live in an atmosphere. In the atmosphere of the Earth, contains things, and
The
so
water.
um, as far as, well, what do you mean the water?
It keeps all the water from falling.
Well, it keeps
off
all
of
the water
Earth.
and people, but like, yeah, I mean, the reason you experience gravity the same on the northernmost tip as you do on the southernmost tip. I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe there's some super slight difference because it isn't at the equator. You might weigh, differently. I don't know if it's more or less.
Why would that be the case?
Well, isn't it? So the
Well, I'm
world's
still not.
as-
I'm not hearing why the water doesn't just fall off the bottom anyway.
Oh well, gravity is contained within the atmosphere. Once you leave the atmosphere, there's no gravity, and so this gravity. So there's mass in the center of the Earth, and it creates a pull, just like we're being pulled by the sun. The center of the Earth pulls us toward the Earth, the center of the Earth.
Wow.
So if you want to find out where the center of the Earth is, you just hold a pin up really high. Well, if we're on the outermost edge, it doesn't matter. It's going to be going toward the center, but like it'll just go straight down from where you drop it, I suppose.
Right. So that's what down is.
Down is, yes, when something falls down, it is being pulled to the center of the Earth. It's just that, objects get in the way, like the Earth itself.
Interesting.
Um,
What's your confidence level in this theory?
well, it's just a weird way of saying gravity, which I'm pretty sure is just right. I mean, I might like the reason things fall down is toward the center of the Earth. But so just for a second, I was kind of playfully thinking, like, if you drop something, wouldn't it be weird if the center of the Earth was to the left of you, so you drop something and it would fall to the left, like your items would fall. But like, if we're on the outermost of the Earth, it's just gonna fall right to the Earth. Like,
Sure.
If for some reason, there's just no, you'd have to be, I don't know. Like, it's, no matter what you do, the center of the Earth is right below you.
Right.
Right?
Because
Like,
the Earth is round.
you're in a
'cause it's
sphere. Yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah. Roughly.
So if
so-
that's the case, so if your theory is true and everything gets pulled towards the center of the Earth, why doesn't the moon fall straight down onto the Earth?
That's not as easy to answer. I suppose it's the same reason we don't fly to the sun. Like,
Why don't we?
I don't really know. I mean, maybe we will in like a bajillion years. Like, maybe we're slowly spiraling toward it, or the moon is coming toward. I don't understand orbits. I understand that the gravitational pull keeps us from just, like, it's why we stay close to the sun. Like, I can buy this idea of gravitational pull and masses, or like the bigger the mass. I don't know why the size. I understand this to be true. That the size of something, the bigger the mass, the more gravitational pull, and it has to be absolutely massive to have any gravitational pull. I don't understand why? Like, what the heck? Like, if you just take this theory, I mean, this is a silly way to think of it, but like, take a fat person. If they eat one more hamburger, they'll start to like things will start to be attracted to them. They'll literally start to pull things.
In our experience, that's the opposite, right?
Exactly, it repels things. No, but like, just take the example silly. But now imagine a superhuman, like a giant, and then one as big as the Earth, or not quite as big as the Earth, so no pool, and then like a little bit bigger starts to have pool, like this mysterious thing starts to, because of its size. Like, we all have a little bit of gravitational pull, I suppose. You have to have a little. So little it doesn't matter. It's not measurable by our current scientific methods. But if we were to expand some and be huge and have a proper density, we would pull things toward us. I mean, that's what a black hole. Oh, I have a feeling you were going to ask me about that. But like, it's like this ultra dense gravitational pull that's so that maybe pulls things in, but it's also like, I don't know, it like pulls things in and crushes them under. Oh man, I'm way out there, and
you are way out there, man. But God, you're doing pretty well with astronomy, actually. So far.
Well, thanks.
But I'm still waiting to hear why the moon.
Okay, yeah, why the moon doesn't crash into the Earth is because, like the pull is great, but not so great as to bring it crashing in. So it must, in some ways, want chaos. Like the moon and everything else wants to just float about randomly. And because we have enough size in this gravitational pull, we are pulling it, and its resistance is just great enough that it becomes this kind of nice. So it's just, as it's pulling, it's almost like a dog on a chain, like running around in circles, I guess. Like, and
so you're saying that everything generally is chaotic and trying to just go all over.
It would until it interacts with something else.
But because we have this kind of gravitational leash on it that it can't like run away.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It makes sense to me. I just don't know.
If the moon is running around randomly, like, wouldn't sometimes its running direction randomly be towards Earth, and sometimes it would be away? So wouldn't sometimes, like, when your dog is on a leash and it runs at you, like, your leash doesn't do any good for you?
I would say it's not changing. Okay, that makes sense to me, except it was going, or once it was randomly going a direction, that's just the way it was going. Like, it's not, once it's in motion, as Newton's third law of mechanics said, E equals mc squared. What I'm saying, to put it in layman's terms, is that once an object is in motion, it's the law of perpetual motion. So once something's in motion, it remains
stays in motion forever.
Yeah. Well, until something stops it, like gravity or whatever. And so no, really, like if there was nothing motion. No, it is perpetual. It's just something stops it. So
it's perpetual until it stops.
Well, it does in realistic terms. Just think abstractly with me for a second. So, like, if there was no gravity, if there was no wind resistance, if there was nothing, and I threw a ball in space, like, it would just continue going. And it wouldn't change directions. It would just continue going indefinitely until it hit a like a planet or whatever, or got pulled into a gravitational pull, whatever. And so that's how. So picture the moon is. So things are just randomly going.
The moon
They're not
is
changing directions, just
like,
floating
just
one direction
floating
randomly,
around, and then it comes
one
across
direction.
the Earth.
And and then gets stuck in its orbit.
Gets stuck in the orbit.
So there was not a, like, I this is so funny to think about, and probably way wrong, but like, there's just probably a time we didn't have a moon, and then it got in our orbit, and then hello moon, like, we've got a moon now. So makes sense to me.
Yeah,
like there was a pre-moon Earth.
Wow, man, I gotta say, like, honestly, you're pretty dead on with all of your theories, actually. Like, you've nailed the theory of gravity. You've nailed gravity. Like, you got that exactly right. Everything has a gravitation. Anything with mass has a gravitational pull. Even small things like relatively small things like fat people. The more massive a thing is, the more gravity it has. So, Earth has gravity. The moon has gravity. Obviously, the Earth is.
This pull is mysterious to me, though. Like, you're just like, just this sheer existence starts to physically pull on you. Like, that is strange to me.
It is strange. I mean, it's strange because, we can't, like, gravity is so natural to us that it just seems like the state of existence of everything around us. Like, when I was a kid and playing with magnets, they seemed so unnatural and strange that these specific kinds of metals could have a force, And when you bounce two repelling magnets together, that's weird. Like, that is freaking weird when you do that. That feeling is like, what is going on? And gravity is really that weird. Gravity is just as weird as that. It's just that, we exist within gravity, and so it's, we don't even notice it anymore. But it is pretty weird and mysterious. So I'll agree with you there.
Well, that just means that, like, I do have an infinitesimally small amount of gravitational pull. Like, I do. Like, so, or right. Walking by I mean, I get, so the density matters, so it's not just like it's house, because house, or mass. Okay, well,
I mean, density is proportional to mass, but mass is what does it. So obviously, if something is really dense, there's a lot of mass in a small. But like, space. I
could be denser than, say, a big, cabin or something, like a thinly walled like cabin. I don't know, probably not too big.
Denser or more massive? Which one are you saying?
It would be more dense for sure, but all the masses would be added up, like of all the walls and stuff. So if it were made out of like styrofoam and it were the size of a house, I could be both more dense and have more density and mass, right?
Yeah, sure. Like, I mean, if you had a giant, bouncy castle or something like that, a bouncy castle is probably heavier than you are. Maybe. I don't know. But if you had a really low quality, like, bouncy castle, then you could conceivably be more massive, that is heavier, on Earth than that bouncy castle.
Right.
Whereas, and you're also more dense, assuming it's inflated, because it's mostly filled with air. Right. So you're right about that.
So,
I mean, you can envision, like, your body does have a gravitational field. You can imagine if we went to the emptiest part of space and there's just nothing there and nothing around you, and we stuck you there floating in space, and then we took something with a really, really low mass, like a hydrogen atom, like the lowest mass thing, not really the lowest mass thing.
I was going to say a feather, but you went way smaller.
A pretty low mass thing, and we threw it at you, right near you, so it was going to miss you, but only barely. And we could somehow trace the path of that hydrogen atom. Then, as it approaches you, we could see it get pulled ever slightly closer to you because your gravity pulls it. And technically, you would get ever so slightly pulled closer to the hydrogen atom too, because it has gravity as well.
So, is the moon getting closer to us all the time? Like, just slowly closer to us?
I don't think so. I mean, not in any. It's like the moon's not going to crash into the Earth. That's not a problem. And
well, I mean, not even a million years, but I'm just saying, is it like in a trillion years? Is that the course? Like, I guess if they're being attracted to each other, wouldn't they be slowly making their way? It wouldn't just be perfectly even.
Well, you're right. It's not perfectly balanced. I don't know what would happen in a trillion years. Like, assuming, I guess the moon, while it's orbiting around Earth, is slowly hitting, space dust and other things, and getting pummeled by the sun
just as much. Yeah.
And it's affecting it very, very slowly. But it is friction in some sense, right? Slowing down. Everything is constantly losing its energy. It's dissipating. So, at least if you're following that line of thought, then the moon would gradually slow down. And the reason you had this right as well, actually pretty surprising. The reason why the moon doesn't crash into the Earth is because it has velocity. It's moving, and it's trapped in the Earth's gravitational field without any resistance. It can just continue to orbit the Earth. We can consider it indefinitely. If there's no forces opposing it, it has velocity, and it's trapped in the gravitational pull. It'll just keep on rotating. But if what you're saying is true, or what I'm saying is true, and it's continually running into tiny dust particles and solar wind and whatever,
other
slowing it down,
yeah.
then eventually its speed would decrease. The gravity would start to pull it ever so slightly closer to Earth until, sometime down the line when it smashes into Earth. Or the orbit of the moon is, it's not perfectly circular. So conceivably, if at a particular point in the orbit it reaches that perfect point, it could get flung out of the Earth's orbit, maybe. But
yeah, no, all of those things seem just as likely in terms of it hitting little stuff, because if it's, let's just say it is inching toward Earth, but 1 inch might be 1 billion years for all we know. I mean, it seems just as likely that space dust and little bitty things would affect it just as much, and maybe in the opposite direction, maybe toward it, like whatever, enough that it just overall ends up, I mean, just being so negligible that we don't consider the day that the moon's going to crash into us, because that's not happening. Like it's
right.
not. It's not.
I
even...
wonder over the time span in which we are supposing that the moon would either crash into Earth or get flung out of orbit. Is it more likely that some big asteroid or something smashes into the moon and messes things up before then? Like if we're saying that it's 1 trillion years. I mean, I guess I'm not actually sure what the lifespan of the sun is, because, apparently the sun is going to change phase and swallow up the planets sometime down the line anyway, and so it might kind of be a moot point whether the moon is going to crash into the Earth if the sun is just going to eat it all.
This is a quick aside that has to do with that, though. Do you remember a show called Pop-Up Video?
I remember that Pop-Up Video on VH1.
Yeah, and they would do music
I used to like that.
And well, it was a fun way to gather information quickly. Like, oh, it took the 3 years to design this set, or it cost 10 times the budget, or whatever, just little things, or so-and-so argued with so-and-so about this, and that's just neat. They did Pop-Up Video with the Brady Bunch, and I was just, for whatever reason, I don't know if they just did a few episodes or what, and I remember 2 specific pop-ups that surprised me and unsettled me. I was a kid here, the Brady Bunch was old, really old, Nick at Night old, and right. I disliked things at the time because it was old, and then I was starting to like that show, and so it was thrilling for me. It was like I felt mature for liking something old because I equated old and sophisticated, and so I felt like I was a little older. I felt older for liking
old people like old things, so if you like old things, then you feel older.
Yes, that's the right line of reasoning I was working with at the time. And 2 things that startled me. One was like Marsha or someone, I don't really remember what was happening, so I'm not even going to pretend, but they were drinking from a hose, and it said, actually, you shouldn't drink from a hose. It causes diarrhea and blah, 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 other sicknesses. And I was like, I drink from the hose. And, this is the age where you're playing with a hose in the backyard, and you get in the water sprinkler, and you just love it. Or you make like a mud monster out of like some muddy patch in the yard. That's just what I did. And so that upset me.
I remember we did that as kids.
Yeah, we did this sort of thing. And I'm sure we drank from, that was part of the pleasure, is just, you have this source of water just running out, and you can just open your mouth. I don't know. It's kind of like when you learn to pee outside. You're a boy, and you learn how easy it is. It's just like, then you got to do it. You got to find. Right. So when you're playing in the water, thirsty or not, you're going to drink from the hose. It's like this almost. It's this. I don't know. It's a privilege in that moment, or it's a treat in that moment. So you want to partake in it. So that upset me. Another thing was
why. Wait, it didn't explain why.
No, it just said don't drink from a hose. Actually, this is dangerous. It can cause diarrhea. I remember diarrhea being the thing because I didn't understand the other things. I was little and I was like, oh. And I was also like, that's how you spell diarrhea? I think it was this person.
Yeah, it's a weird word.
And then the other thing was it made
a beautiful word.
That is funny. Diarrhea. Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah.
If you could separate it. If you can separate it from what it's a pretty, it is a pretty word, diarrhea.
Deserving of a poem.
Diarrhea
running through my mind.
It's a disgusting word. It's hard to extract yourself from the meaning, but it is just the the
Fun
sound,
aesthetically.
the fun aesthetically pretty
Fun
good.
aesthetically speaking.
I'm disappointed you didn't choose it of all the words. Like,
Oh, I
that's
chose
funny.
gonorrhea, so...
Yeah, yeah. And I would say diarrhea is prettier than gonorrhea.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you.
Because G and anyway. The other fact it shared, I think one of the kids in the show said, "Oh, it's the end of the world," or made some dramatic statement, and it popped up and
Actually,
said,
the end of the
then,
world.
yes, it will be in like 4 billion years when the sun consumes us all. And I remember then it did an additional pop up of like basically a scared, I wouldn't say emoji. I don't think that was in the collective
that wasn't around back
but
then.
just but still there was a smiley face and like a shocked looking face, and it showed that, and I felt that a little. I was like, oh man, I mean, I know I'm not going to be alive, but like that's upsetting. That upset me a little bit as a kid when time is, you learn you can die and your parents can die, and your parents are probably going to die before you if the natural order of things unfolds. And those are tough things to deal with. And then so I guess that was this will all end. There's my world, and which includes my parents as the most significant figure, so they will end, and then I will end, but all of this will end. And that was so it spit me spiraling into an existential crisis because of pop-up video.
Wow, at like 9 years old.
Yeah, I don't know how old. Yeah, it's about right though. So yeah, no, I'm not kidding. That was like, I was just thinking of the time I learned when that I would, or that my dad could die, or that I could die. And so, do you recall that with any specificity? Like,
no.
Learning you were finite?
Nope. I still don't really think I am.
No. I think that's the weird thing about being human, is that we juggle the ability to both know that we will die and like still function reasonably well and ignore it.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that.
We ignore it pretty well.
If we had any real grasp on the fact that we're constantly dying, and
we'll do it pretty soon. I mean, like what? Like 60 years if we're lucky we got left. Like it being like, and that's just nothing. Just think 60
about it.
Years.
Think about it. We're sitting here like talking into microphones, and we're gonna die. Like, and this is what we're doing.
Well, everything seems
like, shouldn't we be like running around frantically trying to do some science to like keep ourselves alive?
Yes.
I mean, I guess that's technically
running
what we're doing.
Running around frantically.
Running around frantically? Daniel, do some science to keep us alive. Make some recent advances.
Well, I mean, honestly, though, it isn't how finite life is. It's like how meaningful it is. So it would be if it was only meaningful because it was long. Like, that's kind of there's something. So if we were like running around frantically to extend our lives in order to what? Like record a little more, or like to do something is like, I guess 80 years on this earth is enough to do something.
Right.
I don't know. Like it's about the something, I guess, more than the length. I don't know.
It's not the length, that's how you use it. Isn't that what they say? Talking about life specifically, and only that? Yes.
It's not the quantity, it's the quality in the ocean.
Right. Quality is the spice of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had some more questions, but I think we really nailed the science this time.
Did I surpass your expectations?
You did way better than I thought you would.
I surpassed my expectations too. What would you have predicted, or like does this mean I know a little more about science than most people?
I wouldn't go that far. I would say that I mean, like this is what I already knew going into Daniel Does Science, is that if I ask you things about nomenclature or trivia, then you're probably not going to know that stuff. But if I ask you things that you can reason your way to, then you've got a shot. Because
so the fact that I had,
it's not like you're an idiot.
Thanks.
You're welcome. That's you're not an idiot. Like
That might be
you
the
can
best
actually.
compliment you've paid me ever. So,
Yep, I try every now and then.
so
You
I happen to
can
get the right thing, the axiom of something about,
well
Matt,
you're an
gravity.
observant person. And you can grasp ideas and concepts, and so when you think about the way things are and what you've seen, and probably looping in things you've heard like pop-up video and sci-fi shows and all this other stuff, and once you like amalgamate all of that stuff, then you can at least put together a theory of something that makes sense, at least in your head, and turns out that's right sometimes.
Well, right, because I was working with the piece about gravity and mass. That happened to be a factual thing that I found somewhere in my brain. Had I not had that to work with, I think then I would have to just, make up some root theory, then go off crazy, and that's when it's hilarious.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping.
Operating from a
I was kind of hoping you might do that, but
well,
well,
I can't
look at it
fake
this way.
or it's disingenuous,
Yeah, you're right. No, I'm happy with that. No, like you impressed me. And also astronomy is just pretty cool, and most kids are just kind of into it, at least at some point, And so I think sometimes those facts stick around.
Maybe I was neither into dinosaurs nor like space as much as I think the average kid. There's some like kids go
What were
through
you
a
into?
dinosaur stage.
Like dolls,
Well, let me think.
like
No,
dresses.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all that, but that's not. I'm trying to think more academically. I guess sadly I wasn't into. I can't think of like an academic thing I was really.
Do you like bugs? What about bugs?
Oh, that's another good one. I liked rocks.
Rocks? I
Collecting
liked rocks.
I
Okay,
couldn't
there you
tell
go.
you much about them though. Really, I didn't.
Yeah,
study
but like
them,
crystals and
yes, I
like
like
geodes.
that stuff. Yeah, and like, do you remember at Books a Million they had a lot of different types of rocks? It's actually It's something that's actually at a lot of different places. But for me, it was Books a Million, and you could get that tiny bag, get as many as you could fit in there.
Tiger eye
yeah, Tiger Eye. I really like the silver one. I don't know why. Like looking at it now, it doesn't. Like Tiger Eye is way cooler, but I liked the very just silver one. It was clearly
one
just
that looked like chrome.
Yeah, basically like chrome, and like was probably just plated in some. I mean, it was synthetically polished and coated and whatever.
Right.
But I just thought all of that was the coolest, and I would try to find.
I like that stuff too.
I was obsessed with finding a round rock. I wanted to, and I did, and I have one in my backyard, or found one from my backyard that was. Just remarkably round. And I probably could find that little box today. It was in a little cardboard. It wasn't a pencil bag and that with the zippers and stuff. But there was a while when you're really young that you have these they're playfully decorated and colorful. But it's a little rectangular box that opens up.
I remember that.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Usually they were like neon colored and had little bumps on them.
Yes. And I had yes. And sometimes we're two different colors, the top and the bottom.
Clamshell kind of.
And so I
never had one of those. I was more of a pencil bag kind of guy myself.
Well, me too. But I had one of those, and I would take the rocks, and then I would also. My mom got me a can of spray paint once, a gold spray paint, and I loved this idea of spray painting the rocks gold, and so I'd wash them and spray paint them gold, and I'd have my own little gold and think about just dream up fooling my
trying
friends
to sell it
and selling it, and becoming rich off
That's
of
funny.
it. Yeah. So.
Did I ever? Like I know we used to play in my when I lived in the ghetto. We used to play in my backyard. It was a really sandy backyard, and that's what we were talking about. We would play with the hose and funnel the hose deep down into the earth.
I mean, pretty deep too.
Yeah, through the sand because the water coming out would just dig down. But did we ever I remember as a kid I used to search for rocks in my backyard, and my uncle was a plumber who had his shop in our backyard, and on the back of his trucks he had a big vise, and I used to take rocks and put them in the vise and then turn it and crunch the rocks to see what was inside them, and pretty often you could find geodes and stuff, with the crystals on the inside.
Oh, that's so cool.
And I remember looking, I would crush gravel, essentially granite, and it would be boring, just gray powder.
Right.
inside, and I would try to crush quartz. And I always remember thinking like quartz is so hard to crush because it's more dense crystal. And I would be like jumping up and down on the vice arm to try to crush the quartz, and then crushing some and getting the geode inside and thinking it was amazing. Did we ever do that?
I have no memory of that. I do recall you shared that memory with me before, but that would have been incredibly
really
fascinating to me. Like I would have probably only wanted to do that every time I went over. But were you discerning? Like I can imagine as kids we're just picking up rocks instead of going, oh, this one has geodes. Like let's look at it, let's study the outer, so we can make intelligent selections instead of just throwing in any big rocks, little rock, whatever. We would have just gone for bigger rocks or round. I would have probably just tried to find round rocks, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty quickly learn. I mean, in my backyard, I only had a small variety of possible rocks, and the gravel is super easy to identify. You can just look at it and go, oh yeah, that's going to be boring to crush.
Yeah.
The geodes are the ones that are harder because they, on the outside, they just look like brown pebbles, basically, And sometimes when you crush those, they're just brown pebble dirt looking on the inside. I imagine sometimes they're like fossilized turds or something. That's sometimes what it looked like on the inside. It might have been. And then sometimes you crack it open and there's little crystals, and then it's amazing. They were really rare. So there were only maybe 4 or 5 different types of rocks that I could crush in that thing. And I could tell I couldn't identify the geodes, like I said, because, sometimes they just look like normal pebbles. But I could definitely tell if I was going to get quartz or gravel. Those were easy.
This sort of playfulness you're describing, like, do kids do this a lot? Like, I don't want to get into, like, kids don't go outside and play these days, but I guess I am trying to make that point. Like, do kids do this as often, or do you feel like it's substituted by just, like, why, if we grew up in a world of iPads or crazy awesome video games, why the hell would we have gone outside to crush rocks? Really? Like, why would we have done that? We wouldn't have. We would have stayed in and watched videos, and we just would never have these sorts of, like, we wouldn't remember or have shared experiences like that of the hose in the backyard. Or are kids and they're out there doing all the things anyway?
I think kids are still kids. Obviously we've become more, like, technology has permeated more of our culture, and people of all ages are now using technology more. So I think it would be fair to at least suppose that there are less kids crushing rocks in their plumber uncle's vices today than when we were kids. But I think kids are still playing outside and digging in the dirt and stuff like that. But I mean, like, when I was a kid, I would play Super Nintendo all the time. I mean, I still played video games when I was a kid, but I also enjoyed crushing rocks and catching lizards and all of that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And that makes me happy to hear, because I think, well, I don't know what to think, actually. I'd like to see data. I don't know how they measure that other than, like, poll parents and say, do your kids play outside often or sometimes or rarely or never? So.
Well, I mean, there are probably a number of other factors. Like, I didn't research this, but I've heard, and I think it's true, that, now people are waiting until later in life to have kids, and that means that they have fewer kids. And because they have fewer kids later in life, they are more protective of them. So they're kind of helicopter parents, which means that kids actually have less freedom and less unsupervised playtime. So I imagine that would contribute, too, to kids being more likely to be playing on their iPad inside or playing Fortnite or something rather than going outside to explore on their own.
Deep irony in that, right? Like, because you feel like because your kid's sitting in their room playing on a piece of tech that where they're at, so you feel that they're safe, versus you're terrified they might fall and get a cut outside or something like that. When they really could be doing terrible things or having terrible things done to them in this digital world, and
right.
Like, I don't know, just crazy that the concern is this physical safety, which is totally understandable. You want your kids to be physically safe, but I think
but kids are pretty tough. I mean, like,
kids are meant to go out.
It's not like they're going to be
anti-fragile, right? That's the term. What's his name?
Yeah. Jonathan Haidt.
Yeah, the anti-fragile idea is fascinating. Like wine, a
Mm.
wine glass is breakable, is fragile. You break it, you drop it, it's broken. But kids need. I mean, what are the measles and the mumps and these sorts of things? Like we get vaccines that expose us to it, and then we're stronger because of it. You could verify the science on that, but
Yeah, right.
I don't know. Like kids need to get out and crush some rocks and scrape their knees and that sort of thing.
Right. What doesn't kill you makes
You not
wrong.
dead. Makes you what doesn't kill you makes you live longer.
There you go. That's it.
Yeah,
I think that's how it goes.
Yeah.
I remember this is a little bit of a sidestep, but still talking about things I used to do when I was a kid. One thing that I remember really enjoying as a kid that I only got to do pretty rarely was we had a mutual friend when we were kids named Josh.
Yeah.
And I was friends with him primarily when I was in 4th and 5th grade. And whenever a couple of times when I would go over to his house, I remember it rained really hard, probably during the summer or something, summer rainstorms. Mm-hmm. And it was just raining really, really hard. And if you recall, his neighborhood was kind of suburby and everything. And if you could actually go back through his backwood, he had a little bit of woods in his backyard. You could go back through his backwoods and get to another little subdivision-y area.
That's
but
right.
there's like a creek in his backyard. Do you remember this?
I do remember the creek. Yeah.
It wasn't
like a little
huge.
ravine with maybe I don't know what.
Yeah, just bigger than a ditch, but smaller than
a
like any
spot,
legitimate.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but enough
like smaller than any.
More than an ankle deep of water for sure.
Right, and when it stormed, it was like there's a lot of water draining off into that thing and going by, and we used to. When it was raining super hard and water was pouring through there, and there's a bunch of like limbs and branches and stuff that would make little waterfalls in that thing. We would raid his recycling bin and get water bottles or milk jugs or whatever would float and put them at the top of the stream and essentially race them down the stream in the pouring torrential rain to see which one would make it. And you could follow that little creek for a pretty long way. And I don't know, I just have a pretty fond memories of racing bottles down this creek in a huge thunderstorm. And just lightning and thundering and stuff. And his mom didn't care or maybe didn't know, I don't know. But we're just carousing around, getting soaked to the bone, running through his neighborhood, essentially littering. It was a pretty good time.
It makes me smile hearing about that though, because that is when these shows like Stranger Things and people searching for the nostalgia and kids being kids, whatever that means. That is what that means. I think is just not caring about stuff that I would now care about. I'd be like, oh, I'm soaked. I'm really uncomfortable. But your curiosity and your friendship and the socialization and there's a task at hand, watch this bottle float down the river or the creek or race down the creek, and intensified by the weather. I don't know, the childlike adoration of that moment or excitement of that moment. It's such a simple
exciting
moment,
and
but it is exciting.
It's simple, but it's adventure, and you're discovering. You're pressing against the bounds of the area that pressing past his backyard and further down the creek to see where the bottles go and what happens when it goes down this drain. You're asking all these questions and pushing out into areas that you didn't know before, and you're observing things you never have, like how does this bottle behave when it's going over this branch waterfall or whatever. You don't see these things every day. It takes unusual circumstances to observe this, and so it's exciting.
It makes me think that one day when I'm a parent, I will have to fight the urge to, if it's a lightning storm, if it's really intense, I'm just not going to let my kids go out in it. But maybe if it's not so bad and still raining pretty tough, and it seems absurd to let them go soak their clothes and do something like that, to just kind of either look the other way, or because you don't necessarily want to condone or promote that behavior, but maybe to occasionally, when a kid is being adventurous in a way that's reasonably safe, to allow them to kind of explore. And because that's what fosters sort of like, I don't know, independence and creativity and all these great things is
Right.
a little bit of risk taking. So like the art of being a parent is saying risk is unavoidable, what's reasonable, and like, can I allow them, can I just get over myself and say, let them go play in the rain, let them go play in a thunderstorm? I mean, it sounds, I'm sure some people would like vehemently disagree with that, but
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, getting struck by lightning is not that likely. Kids are short
oh,
and
it's
small.
not that bad. Not that bad.
I mean, people survive.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, how likely is it that your kid is going to get struck by lightning? Very, very unlikely.
Yeah.
I mean, they're short and small. Presumably, they're not running around on a golf course or in an open field or whatever. Like,
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
Just,
No, it's just very unlikely. If it's not crazy lightning, it's just what you would consider a typical thunderstorm. I mean, that could just
Right.
be exhilarating, and you probably weren't out there for an hour. I mean, we're talking about being out there for 15 minutes, and you weren't swimming in a pool. Like I think there's some unreasonable risks, like swimming in a pool or something. Might be you've expanded the risk because all it takes is striking that entire body of water. So.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it just seems reasonable to get out of the pool when there's a crazy.
But why would
storm.
lightning strike the surface of the pool?
Is it attracted to water more? I really don't know. I mean, tall things and conductive things, which are metal and tall, and I mean, actually, like you can walk around in New York, from my understanding, during crazy lightning storms, which are completely safe in downtown, New York City, like the crazy tall buildings, and that's cool to think that there are no deaths by being struck by lightning in that area because it's just gonna hit those buildings. In fact,
Right.
they have all those poles and stuff on top, right? There's like lightning,
Yeah. Lightning poles.
lightning poles. Yeah, so it's designed that way. I know, really though. I can't tell if you're
Yeah.
screwing with me. That's like,
No,
don't they?
you're right.
So
They do.
So
That's true.
it's cool to think that you can walk around completely fearless in that sort of setting.
Right. Well, I mean, if you know how it works, then, I mean, generally, you can avoid the risk. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if your kid's running around in the woods in a thunderstorm, like, getting struck by lightning is probably not the way he's going to go. More
Yeah.
likely going to be a bear or, getting trapped in a hole or...
It's more likely that you would have
Snake
drowned in
bite.
that little creek, like by breaking your arm and falling face first, than
Right,
getting
then getting
by
struck by lightning. Yeah, getting struck by lightning was not really that much of a risk.
But then there's also the parent, like, you don't care about being wet, but like you're a kid, you're just gonna walk in afterward and get everything wet, and then we have, like, if it's a friend too, you have to deal with like these wet kids, and it's just
Yeah, but
it's okay.
if you remember Josh, then, like, honestly, the amount of damage he could cause, like, just adding me on top of it was not
you were
really that
nothing,
significant.
right? He was adventurous and and a little bit reckless. So yeah,
Right. I mean, like, probably after that ordeal, I was, like, squeezing out my clothes, on the porch and wiping my feet off, and he was just, like, running straight inside and rolling around on the furniture. So.
that sounds like Josh.
Right. So I want to shift topics and talk about something that I'm not sure that we've talked about before, even off the podcast. So that topic is superstition. Are you a very superstitious person?
Superstitions. I don't think I'm particularly superstitious. I get that. I mean, I guess we'd have to define it, or I want to ask some questions about it. But does it take like cultural influence to be superstitious? Like, does it have to be like, okay, if something costs $6.66, sign of the beast, right? Like, so
Right.
I better just buy something else, or not buy that product, or whatever.
Right.
That is imparted on me by like culture.
That's
and I
right.
get enacted individually, but
Right. Well, I mean, I would say probably that superstition is cultural, almost 100%, right?
so let's say I have a weird
Or maybe not. Maybe it is. I would say that most are cultural, but some are weird quirks that you kind of maybe generate in your own head based on faulty or incomplete pattern recognition.
So then, okay, I got a good example then, and I'll ask you, is this superstitious?
Mhm.
I like my volume set on divisible by 5 or an even number or divisible by 5. So
Right.
I prefer 10, 20, 30, 40. The next thing I prefer is 15, 25, 35, and then
Right.
I, you get the idea. I don't
It
want
just sounds better.
13, I don't want 17, I don't want
Yeah.
19. Just go to 20. I can deal with 18, that's fine. But I prefer 20 or 15 or 10.
What
um,
about any difference between prime numbers and other odd numbers?
no
So like between 19 and 21, which one do you prefer?
Both of those I do not deal with. I
You
go
probably
to
don't know what prime is,
I
do
do
you?
it. I do. It's
Oh.
two numbers came well. Anyway, I but when I want to iterate to you that it's a pretty
Uh-huh.
real, like,
That's definitely a superstition.
you don't consider that just an idiosyncrasy or a OCD sense tendency. It's not OCD full blown, but like,
Well, what happens if your volume is on 19?
okay, if I don't know, I don't feel the compulsion to check. But like, let's just say I'm riding in the car with you, your car. Let's say
Uh-huh.
I don't even know you, or I kind of know you. You're giving me a ride.
Yeah, you're taking an Uber.
Yeah, I'm not that, but and I'm sitting up front, and
Yeah.
they just adjust the volume to turn it up, and I look and I see that it's 19.
Uh-huh.
I will, and I am very sensitive to like the idea of social capital and being polite and what I do with the do's and the do nots, and it's a do
Right.
not to reach over and adjust their volume after they've adjusted it. It's gonna cost
Uh-huh.
me something and look weird, but I'm gonna pay
Right.
that cost to put it at 20. I am. I like just am going to pay that cost. If someone like if I'm driving and it's really like the traffic's crazy and it's a little bit one of those moments you should be very focused, two hands on the wheel, checking all your
Uh-huh.
mirrors, all that stuff. Like 18 wheelers maybe come over in your lane a little bit, and then you
Right.
were to just spin even to tease me, knowing about my volume issue.
Right.
I cannot promise you that I would responsibly wait until the most responsible moment to adjust that volume back.
Uh-huh.
Like
Right.
it would not be a wise move for you to make because my need to adjust that volume could override sensible safety. Now I'm not gonna just like scream and do it and like wreck us or anything, but I really might not make the best decision. And that's where I compulsion is almost the right word because I feel like I need to do that.
Right. But and so if you turn your volume to one of these undesirable numbers, then you're really uncomfortable and it's just bad.
Yeah, this general sense of, I think
I mean,
Doom's too strong. Just like
I would
it's like an
I would
itch you
say
can't
that
scratch kind of thing.
yeah, I would say that fits under the umbrella of superstition. And most of the superstitions that I came across, like I looked up a bunch of common superstitions, had to do with luck, essentially. If this thing happens, bad luck. If this thing happens, good luck. And then secondary to that are things like wishes. If this thing happens, you can make a wish, kind of thing.
Or like,
Yours,
yeah, go ahead.
yours is odd because it's not, at least if I'm understanding correctly, it's not good luck to have your volume on a particular number or bad luck to have it on a different number. It's just really uncomfortable to have it on certain numbers.
Yeah, it's unusual. I can't even trace the origins of this. I don't know why it originated. I don't know. I didn't have some bad thing happen when it was on a bad volume, so to speak. I don't know. It does make sense that like, some sports fanatic wearing, this old cap and their team wins and they're gonna wear that old cap every time and it becomes their
Sure.
lucky cap. Like that's the idea of a
Yeah.
superstition.
Right. Right.
I can think of another. Is this what you want me to do? I'm coming up with examples. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
So there's like at the school, this is definitely a cultural one that I adhere to. We have one of these uh, mm, on the ground. Like, so imagine a nice floor. There's some outside. There's several around the school where it has our I'll call it the insignia or the
Yeah,
mark.
mascot logo,
Yeah, but
whatever.
on a polished piece of marble on the ground that's
Yeah,
like definitely different than the sidewalk, and the idea is that you do not step on that.
sure, sure.
And I even had when I was interviewing for the position, the upper division director just commented, "Yeah, we don't step on that," and I accepted it as like, I mean, I don't know why this just. I feel like this. We're not the only school to ever do this, right? Like, there's just some
Right,
things,
sure.
and it kind of, you know what? Even if he hadn't told me, I think I just wouldn't. It's polished, shiny, like nice looking, and feels like you just tracking your feet over it doesn't feel right to me. And so then when they affirm that by saying don't do that, then it really ups the idea. Like I just don't step on it. I do go out of my way, and so does everyone else. So it's reinforced and doubled down, and I do that without thinking or questioning, really.
Right. So that to me sounds less like superstition. I mean, it still could be, and more like a sign of respect. So, in the same sense how there's all those rules about the flag, how you're supposed to, there are rules about raising and lowering it, and there are rules about folding it and disposing of it, and obviously you're not supposed to burn it and all of that kind of thing. It seems to be more about a respect for an ideal or a symbol rather than it's bad luck to step on this insignia.
But,
does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I guess. Except, what's the difference? So take the 666 sign of the beast. Like, don't purchase that item or buy something else in addition because you don't want to entertain evil. Like, so you don't respect it, or in a way you have reverence toward the idea of evil, and so you want to.
Well,
avoid.
it depends. I mean, it depends on what sorts of associations you have with 666. Like, if I remember the history of that correctly, then it has something to do with like Nero or something.
I honestly don't know at all, so I can't help you.
Right. So, but and then it has modern connotations that are maybe like based on something historical or biblical, like some connotations with evil and the devil and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like it just doesn't seem the same to me as, if you are showing respect to a symbol or a representative idea, like to avoid an item that costs $6.66 seems more of a superstition than not stepping on your school's insignia on the floor.
I guess, would it be, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but if someone were like, someone's stamping on, burning, or peeing on, or whatever, disrespecting the American flag, to which that ticks someone off, engages them in a confrontation, says, don't do that to the American flag, to which the person committing these things says something like, oh, you're just so involved in, like, you're just hung up on superstition. Is that even like a normal response? Do people say that? Am I making that up? Or would they attribute devotion to this physical flag as, I mean, because one's going to talk about respect and the other's going to talk about superstition, maybe.
Right.
Is that plausible?
I actually don't think that would be a common response. Like, I see the link that you're drawing, but I don't think that they would. I just think that superstition is something distinct. So I think that the person stepping on the flag would say, it's not like I'm actually stepping on America. Like, I'm stepping on a symbol. Nothing is really being damaged here. Like, this is just an abstract thing. It's not tangible and real. That the thing that I'm supposedly disrespecting, there's no actual damage being done. That's what they would be saying. And that's, if they were saying, oh, don't get caught up in superstitions, that's what they would mean. But I think the superstition, there's something a little different about it. Like, I think that's the belief that there will be some sort of effect that doesn't necessarily logically follow, or maybe it's a little bit mysterious. Like, the cause and effect might not quite be clear. If this happens, then this either good or bad effect will happen. And it doesn't have necessarily as much to do with an abstract ideal being represented. Like,
right, it's like breaking a mirror 7 years back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. So when a black cat crosses your path, it's not like you're thinking, oh, the black cat stands for something. Like, it's not some ideal that has, I don't know, that's happening or being trod upon. It's just a black cat crossing your path is bad luck.
Yeah.
And
step on a crack, break your mother's back.
Right.
If you don't post in this post, your mom will die.
Right. Yeah. Break a leg. I compiled a big list of them. So, like, walking under a ladder, opening an umbrella inside, An interesting one too that I think is bizarre and should just go away is the 13th floor, omitting the 13th floor of buildings.
Oh yeah, it's almost cutesy. I don't think it's true. I think it's just cutesy. Unless it's they actually found that selling, say, or renting to a business or something was hurt by that, then they just actually skipped that.
I mean, I think a lot of buildings really do skip the 13th floor, which is some crap, right? Like
Well,
that's
it is the 13th floor. 14 is 13. Like you're on it. So
yeah,
that's silly.
it is silly. I think that one's silly.
But they're all incredibly silly, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
so,
you're right. Do you know the origin of that one though?
Well, like I was saying, 13's an unlucky number, which I don't
Why?
know the origin of that. Friday the 13th. I don't know. Do you?
Yeah. Well, here's what I found when I was looking at it. So apparently, I won't say most, but many superstitions, as you might expect, have religious histories or undertones. A lot having to do with like the symbol of the cross or the Trinity or
3, 7, 6.
Right.
These important
So
numbers.
13 is apparently at the Last Supper. There was Christ and the 12 disciples at the table, so there were 13 people at the table, and then right after that Christ got crucified. So it's bad luck to sit at a table with 12 other people, to have a table.
Or was that when
table with 13 people.
the guy betrayed him, Judas, right? Like,
Yeah.
he was the 13th, or maybe that's the idea.
That's not the idea. The idea is just that he was sitting at a table with 12 other people, and then he died the next day. So it's bad luck. The number 13 is bad luck.
Okay, that's a stretch almost, but okay.
That's just what I found. Maybe it is a stretch, but like that's the origin that I uncovered for why the number 13 is unlucky. And I just thought it was interesting. And apparently, like there were some historical figures, like I forget who it was now. I think it might have been FDR. It was one of the U.S. presidents who refused to sit at a conference table with 12 other people because it was bad luck.
In this context, I think I'm deeply, not superstitious. Like, I wouldn't freak out if someone opened an umbrella indoors, other than saying, "What are you doing? It's a big device, and you're indoors.
Right.
Like, stop it."
Right.
But other than like some practical matters, I guess it's weird because I would avoid walking under a ladder. Okay, follow me here then, because I'm both not stepping on the insignia and walking under a ladder. They're both things that I could probably never be told by society that that it was bad luck, and yet I think I would just avoid walking under a ladder, and I would avoid stepping on that insignia. And then it's doubled down. So, like, but if you were to ask me, why do you never walk under the ladder? You had to go out of your way. You could have just gone the most direct path. I needed, maybe that happened. People agreed we're not walking under ladders, but there was some guy who was doing it, and they wanted to kind of convince him not to as well. And then he goes, "Well, why?" And then they were like,
Bad luck.
Bad luck. Like a curse be upon you if you do this thing I don't like, and I have a hard time justifying.
So when I was trying to think why would that one be bad luck, I thought it was simply a practical matter. Like, ladders are unstable things, and throughout, ladders have been around for a while, and, you walk under a ladder, and maybe you're clumsy, or you're a little too fat, or you're holding something, and you bump the ladder, then it can be dangerous, right? You can knock the ladder over,
it's a
the person can
construct.
fall.
You're at a work site of some sort. If there's a ladder propped, it maybe hasn't been. Maybe they're done working. Maybe whatever. But like, you don't walk under a ladder, man. Like, come on.
Right. So that one just seems more practical and less superstitious. Although I will say, when I was looking about superstitious stuff online, I'd found that apparently, I don't think I believe this, but apparently walking under a ladder also has a religious history. Apparently, the shape of a ladder, either a two-sided ladder that essentially looks like an A, standing on the ground, or a ladder just leaning against the wall, makes the shape of a triangle, which is representative of the Trinity. And walking through the middle of the Trinity is a sign of disrespect, in the same that brings bad luck in the same way that walking on the insignia might be. And so they said it's bad luck to walk under a ladder because you're, essentially thumbing your nose at God.
I mean, I could see that. I just feel like I would have heard that.
Yeah,
or
it seems like I would have heard that too. I'm not sure I buy that one. To me, it just seems like at some point in history, like some dude walked under a ladder and it fell on him, and he was like, "Oh man, walking under ladders is bad luck," and then it just kind of caught on from there. That one just seems more practical. Opening an umbrella inside, that one, that one seems more superstitious to me than practical.
But still, there's like it's not as efficient to do. I mean, maybe I don't know. Not necessarily. So I don't know.
And then there are like the good luck ones, like 4-leaf clovers, lucky number 7, horseshoes, lucky rabbit's feet, picking up pennies on heads. Did you ever do that? That one was one that was around when I was a kid.
Find a penny, pick it up. Or find, wait, I never hear the heads in that. Find a penny, pick it up. All day long you'll have good luck. So,
is that just it? To me, for me as a kid, it was always, if the penny's on heads, then you have good luck if you pick it up.
Same here, but I know that there was that jingle to
I don't remember the
it,
jingle, actually.
Yeah, I find a penny, pick it up. All day long you'll have good luck. There's probably like a second verse about, but if it is tails, you will go to hells, or something like that. I don't know, but
break a leg.
Break a leg.
Dream catchers. Actually,
or is that too religious for like?
I'm not sure about that one. Like, isn't that like a Native American sort of thing? Like, there's actually some sort of
association anyway. Yeah, it is.
Well, actually, knock on wood. From what I found is actually an old pagan thing, because apparently the good spirits used to, they believe good spirits used to live inside trees, so they would knock on wood in order to bring out the good spirits.
You just made me think, because I was thinking how deeply non-superstitious I am, yet there seems to be, like if you're about to win a game and the odds are you're going to win it, this is not an act of humility, but like I do not want someone to like say you're about to win it, or if there's a big moment.
Jinxing.
Yeah, so we've actually created a jinx is a way of, I mean, that whole idea is superstitious, really, that they say something and then I get mad, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. I'm mad that they said it because I'm like, you might have messed me up, you might have just signaled, and that's all superstitious, right? Like that's not actually. So in that way, I think most people adhere to some sort of like, as you're closing the deal, whatever that deal, I'm using that very abstractly, whether it's a sport or whatever, as things are about to connect in the way you want them to, you don't count your sheep before they jump over the fence,
right.
You just are quiet, and it could be seen as a humble thing, but I don't think it is. I think it's like we're all a little superstitious, just a little stitious. We're not superstitious.
Right. Well, I think I think you're right. Actually, I think that there's a way in which superstition and psychology get a little bit intertwined, and actually, I think that psychology is probably the root of some superstitions, or it's just entangled in some way. So I'll tell you a little bit about you probably don't think I'm a superstitious person, and I'm not really. But when I was a kid, like I was good at picking up on patterns, and I still am good at picking up on patterns. And this is why my theory of superstition is that, at least in part, they originate when people kind of generate patterns based on insufficient knowledge or insufficient experience. So, like, my primary superstition that persisted, I don't know, like at least into high school maybe, was that I thought that the number 131 was, I won't say it was an unlucky number. It's just a special number because
that's a big number for, it's not like 7 or 6,
Right. Well, it's
131.
The rarity of the number was important, because it seemed like to me, whenever I would see that number, my luck would toggle. So if I was having a really good day and then I saw the number 131, then something bad would happen after that. But then if I saw the number 131 again, it would toggle back to things being okay again. So, like, for example,
change was happening. Yeah.
Right. So there was actually mile marker number 131 on a road that I used to drive down all the time, and I knew, like, obviously I saw that there, and and I recognized that. So what I would do is, if I was having a really good day, I would just not look. I would close my eyes when I drove past that mile marker.
Close your eyes. You mean look the other way?
No, close my eyes. I just wouldn't.
For good luck,
I would
just close your eyes while driving.
Yeah, I just
for that mile.
Right. Well, not for the whole mile, but just when the sign was in sight.
Oh yeah.
I would just make a conscious effort not to look at the sign and not to notice it, because to notice it would be to change my luck from good to bad. And then if I was having a bad day, I'd really stare down that sign, and toggle my luck back to good again.
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't that, it wasn't that I truly believed that this number was causing, there's some cosmic force attached to this number causing everything. It was just that, and this extended back to when I was even younger as well, not when I was driving and stuff too. It originated earlier. It just started because I noticed that, I'm having a really good day or a good time or having a lot of fun, and then I saw that number and then something bad happened and I didn't think anything of it, but then the same experience would happen again and I was having a good time and saw the number and then bad time, and I was like, wait a second, the only common thing between these two experiences, or at least the commonality that I picked up on, was that I saw the number 131. And then I was like, I wonder if the number 131 is a special bad luck number. And then, more pattern data filtered in, times when things were going bad and I saw the number and then they started going good, which led me to my ultimate, or I guess not ultimate, but penultimate conclusion that it was an important number. And then, further, I found that it actually has no effect because it's a stupid number. But that was one of my superstitions.
Did you believe it to the point that would you openly discuss this? I mean, we're pretty good friends, and I think I mentioned shared it with me before. You have shared it before, but it wasn't. I even recall when you shared it, and I might be misrepresenting you here, so I'm sorry, but like, it was kind of there's this weird little thing about me, and I'm just going to tell you, and then we're going to move along. Almost as if to suggest you wanted to move, like you didn't want to be embarrassed by it enough to hide it, but you didn't want to really talk about it that much. Like, it's just a silly thing. I think we came across 131 at some point or something, and you're like, oh. And then you told me, because you weren't hiding it, but you weren't exactly proud of it because it actually had, it meant something to you. And you, maybe there's a part of you that like doesn't want, it's easy just to go, superstitions are really silly. And so there's the major part of your brain says this is silly, and you're almost embarrassed by the little part that's like, but 131,
So I don't remember the instance that you're talking about. I don't think I ever really believed it that strongly to where I would have truly been embarrassed by it. But so I don't remember.
I would like a story. Like, is there an origin story, or at least a prime example of like, look, so here's what was happening, and then here's when I saw it. Because how is it showing up on a receipt? Like, other than this mile marker.
So like, on mile markers on your clock,
time of day,
at
right?
131. That's a common time to see 131. I mean, you're always awake at 131.
Yeah, PM.
Yeah, and there's an exit sign on the Interstate 131 that I would pass. I don't remember where this one was, but I would pass it regularly. And then, if you're listening to music and it's counting the seconds of the song, the minutes, if you reset your odometer or your trip meter when you're in your car, how many miles you've driven, then you'll see it there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know what? I'd like to try
my grades. Oftentimes, my grades on
you
different
get 131
tests
on a test. You're very smart,
right?
It's a 100-point scale, but damn it, you wrote a brilliant piece, and they would just give you 131.
Yeah, and that's bad luck. So I'd try to just make 132 at least.
I want to try an experiment. I want to pick a number between 1 and 3 digits, and between now and the next podcast, just to see if we notice whatever number we collectively decide on, and then like take note. Can we attach this to any meaning? Whether it's a shift in luck or whether it's it doesn't matter. I'm not even going to say that. Like, I just want to, like, if I notice the number, first of all, do I start to see it more because I'm looking for it? My hypothesis is yes, but also. Mm-hmm. can I find a pattern in when it's popping up? Like, oh, it seems to be whenever I'm, frustrated or when I'm reflective or whatever. Does that sound like fun to you?
Sure, yeah, we can do that.
All right. Well,
what number do you want to pick?
I like the idea of a 3-digit because I think if we just did 6,
that's too common.
It's just too common. So I want to do a 3-digit. That's really where I'm at. What's funny is my email ends in 313, and that was just randomly given.
All right,
to
why don't
me
we do
by
313?
Google. Okay, it's interesting because when you said 131, it was like, how weird would it have been if my email had been 131, or your number.
Bad luck. Or maybe good luck. I don't know. I don't know. I've had a fairly good day today, so it would have been bad luck.
Well,
you have screwed everything up.
Yeah. So let's say this: though, 313 was just randomly given to me by Google because it had my name, and then it just offered like, "How about this email? It's available." And I said, "Okay, whatever." It's an easy for whatever reason. It was easy enough. So 313. I would like to move forward for the next week or two. Just looking for 313.
Yeah, we can look for it. I don't know that. We can check in next time and see. I'm not sure that we'll see it that often in just 1 or 2 weeks. We'll find out. I don't know. Okay. I'm interested. I'm interested.
Can we just make it our number? Then we'll take it further. This isn't just a 2-week experiment. Like you and I are committed for the rest of our lives for 313.
To notice 313. Yeah, we'll notice.
It's arbitrarily decided, but we're gonna.
And we'll try to see what it means.
Playfully assign meaning and just say, have you ever noticed when you see 313, it's kind of special? Like, we're going to treat it as special. So we'll see if that actually ends up feeling special over time. I like that idea.
Okay.
And then we're going to name the podcast 313.
Well, we could name it the 313 space podcast.
313 space. I like that a lot.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm down for that. Let's see what happens.
Okay.
Really, though, that's the only that number is the only superstitious thing I can think of that I was superstitious about. I don't know. I like the number 11, but I didn't consider it lucky. Really, I don't know why I liked it. I just did. I didn't think it was lucky though. Like when I was on my Little League baseball team, I wanted to be number 11, but I didn't really care that much, so I'm not sure why. And then I had like some favorite toys and cars and Pokemon and stuff like that, but that wasn't really superstition as much as it was
preference.
Just a preference. So,
although 11 though, like, did you have? There was no athlete. There was no.
No, I didn't care about any athletes. I don't know why I liked it really. Maybe it was just because it was 1-1, the 2 ones.
Do you think that a lot of preferences can be traced back to when you're impressionable and like a kid that you or a person you like presents something like, I don't know, back to Josh, he was a popular cool kid and he randomly decided or whatever, he pronounced orange was his color.
I remember that. He liked
and in
orange.
some ways that's going to affect my relationship with orange, either make me see it favorably because he's my friend and he's cool and I want to be cool and all of these different things, or orange is taken now and I got to find my own color. That's a simple example where orange maybe isn't a good example, or a color isn't good, because we all agree that someone can like blue and someone can like red and someone can like orange, and there's almost nothing at stake there. It's fine and acceptable to choose different ones, but as soon as like take something like vanilla or chocolate, I happen to like vanilla a little more. It seems that the world prefers chocolate a little more. I mean, maybe I'm overstating that, but I'm wondering, because I like them both. I probably could have been pushed in either direction. There might have been a time where a cool guy next to me was like, chocolate's, maybe we're choosing it for some, chocolate's stupid. And I might have gone, yeah, it is. And like, maybe I devoted myself to Team Vanilla, and because honestly, if I really break it down, they're both freaking delicious. And why do I? But I've put myself on Team Vanilla and don't really look back in that way. So
I put myself on Team Vanilla as well.
But do you agree that, like, honestly, a chocolate milkshake can be freaking delicious? I mean, so
yeah, it can be, but to me, to me, like cheap vanilla flavored things still taste pretty good. Like I like that cheap vanilla flavor, but cheap
Yeah.
chocolate flavor isn't so good. And actually, chocolate, I would say there's a broader range of chocolate flavors, and
Oh
so
yeah,
some of
and
them
how
aren't very
dark
good.
and how
Like,
yeah.
yeah, some of them are bitter or are not just not sweet, and like there's so many more chocolate foods, and some of them aren't good. So, but vanilla, I don't really have any experiences eating something vanilla and it being bad. I'm sure there are
Yeah.
things like that, but I just haven't eaten them. Vanilla wafers, vanilla ice cream, vanilla like what like
Vanilla bean cheesecake. I don't know.
sure, yeah, all the vanilla stuff. Like I drink vanilla extract. All that stuff is really tasty.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
do that.
I I'm with you. So you're more confident that if you're ordering a milkshake from a place, you're more confident that especially if it's cheaper, it's safer to
Yeah,
go vanilla. But well, I don't know where I'm even going with that. I'm just saying that at an impressionable age, you can start forming
yeah.
opinions on things
No,
that
I
are
think you're right.
actually preference based, not just arbitrary favorite color or favorite. Like you could have been next to a kid who liked the number 11 or didn't like it, and that
Right.
just really,
Well,
my
I
value
think
of cleanliness stems from my, David's lack of value of cleanliness, and I started to care more and more about it, and he started to be like, chill out, you're being uptight, and then be like, you need to get your stuff together and clean.
right.
And so my values were actually shaped by his
Right, right.
preferences or
Well,
values.
I
So
think a lot of times too, like I mean, kids they will model after their parents. Even so, it's not. I guess it's hard to say what's genuine, but it's not their genuine preference. It's just that their dad likes Chevy trucks, and so they like Chevy trucks, and they never ever grow out of that.
yeah,
It's just it's a preference between Ford or Chevy or whatever, and their dad drives a Chevy truck, so they like Chevy trucks. Even
yeah,
when they turn into adults, that's what they are, and that's how you get these. And sports teams are the same way, right? Like whatever your family, whatever your dad likes, probably you're gonna like whatever sports teams all the
yeah.
way.
No, you're right. It makes sense. I was just even thinking of like the development of something like a new fast food chain. Let's just take Cookout for example, reasonably new. It's not super new or anything, but let's say someone goes, "Oh, Cookout, I don't know anything about it," and someone said, "Oh, it's this just tacky little cheap fast food chain, disgusting, whatever." I mean, it's pretty good, I guess, but like they
Right.
can even just say disgusting and good in the same sentence. I feel like you can do that with fast food, but just be like, it's just this tacky little place. Or someone goes, "Oh man, you can get," and just lights up and sells it like that me hearing about it from a trusted friend or source, like
Right.
it's got an uphill battle with me if it's been
Or like
told
if
to me
a
that
cyclist tells you, like, "Hey, you got to try out Cookout, man. I ride my cycle there every day." Then I'm just gonna be like, "This place probably sucks."
well, like that, yeah, that's the bias. It's not just bias, but like I've been primed to think that maybe it's cheap. Like if someone said, "Oh, it's this cheap, tacky little place," and then I would go in looking for cheap and tacky, and then I see that there are cheap and tacky elements. Or someone emphasizes the value, and then I walk in and I see I can get quesadillas aside. Like, wow, that is a great value, or whatever.
Hmm.
So I've been primed for what to pay attention to, and so I see that thing. And
Sure.
therefore, like
Yeah,
I end
that's
up with that opinion, more often than not. I guess is what I would say. Not all the
right.
time, but more. It's going to influence me. I have to
Right.
overcome it if I'm going to, and I have to go. That person was wrong, and then I have to evaluate their ability to evaluate.
Right. Yeah, like I mean that all makes sense, and I think that kind of is the case. It's kind of like, expectations versus reality. There's a little bit of that. But definitely I think you are primed. People can set you up to experience something. So like if I'm pitching a game or a movie to you, like I can have significant influence on your opinion after the movie or game or whatever is over with, just based on how I pitch it to you.
Yeah, like you're saying after the movie's over.
Yeah, so like if I told you that, oh man, the Lion King movie is, supposed to be really good, and like, did you know this cool fact about it? And did you know that lions are actually real animals? The movie's it's based on, real animals. Lions aren't just made up. And you'd be like, what? Really? And so you're going to go into that movie primed to enjoy it because of that kind of thing. And like you'll come out the other end potentially like having been swayed significantly by that. Whereas if I told you like some bad things about the movie and that, like, did you know that the soundtrack is actually just, it's all synthetic. Like no one actually played an instrument the whole time. It's all just synthetic soundtrack, and it's copy pasted essentially.
No, what you're saying makes sense to me because it actually did not get the favorable reviews that I was expecting. It got generally favorable reviews. It's not garbage. It was clear. But what they said is because they went for that almost like photorealistic, animals. The scene when Mufasa is killed.
What? Spoiler alert.
This is 1992 spoiler alert. Yeah, I know.
I haven't seen the new one though.
Well, it's a scene-for-scene remake. Yeah. So that scene, though, that's this... So with an animated movie, you can have all the characters looking sad and surprised and shocked and all the different emotions. And since they went for realism, they didn't exaggerate those expressions, meaning they just looked like animals, like not really feeling much, which is going to impact the emotional. So since I've been told that, and it's probably true, I mean, that just makes logical sense. I will look and critique that scene more than if I had just gone by myself and, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have noticed or something. I don't know.
Or, if you weren't told that and you went, then you might be living in your nostalgic memories of the animated movie and remembering the emotion, that you felt during those scenes when you watched the original animated movie and feel those same emotions again, just purely out of nostalgia and memory.
Right,
whereas because you've been primed to pay attention and actually bring yourself into the present and pay attention to the visuals put in front of you rather than living in your nostalgic memory, then you actually would not feel that emotion because you're not paying attention to your memories. You're actually looking at the scene and recognizing that, wait, this is different.
Right, and it's supposed to, regardless of whether they achieved it or not, they were attempting for an emotional scene, but the irony of critiquing an emotional scene is now I will be approaching it from an intellectual standpoint and not an emotional one. Instead of just letting it wash over me and enjoying that scene, I will be primed to pay attention to that, which almost certainly, even if they succeeded, I won't feel the emotion. So I've been robbed of even the potential of that, of feeling that emotion, because I'll be looking at it from an academic sense, going, well, I'll decide. And even if I decide they're wrong, I can't both decide that and experience. You can't analyze and experience. I feel like you have to experience then analyze. That's a big thought, I guess. But it's why you have to go out into the world and do things, and then you have to reflect on them. Now, I'm not saying just act like instinctually or like an animal and just go out and not think. I'm saying you make decisions or you process things. It's difficult to process and experience at the same. It's like data collection versus like doing something with the data and growing from it. It's like,
yeah, I understand what you're saying. What about predicting or envisioning how a situation will go and then doing it? In that case, couldn't you both experience and validate your prediction in a more analytical fashion at the same time?
Well, certainly we strategize, so maybe it's a difficult conversation you have to have, or just the best way to approach a theme park, because you've laid out we need to go here, here, and here, and then once let's go with that example, the theme park. So you said go to these rides early because the lines have shown statistically to not have long lines at this part of the day. And so you go and it's bearing itself out. That is true, and you feel happy. You recognize that as you show up, and sure enough, there's no line, and you're right in front of the roller coaster or whatever, and you're like happy. I mean, I don't. Maybe it wasn't a good example, but the point is to me that you can't be both like these are two separate phenomena going, whether it's the planning or reflecting, and then there's the action. Of course, actions aren't completely thoughtless in the moment. Like, you're still a conscious human being, but like if you're on a date and it's a first date or something or whatever date, and there's the kiss happens, like that's an emotional experience in which you're not going, like maybe your mind's racing. I don't know, but
Yeah, but
racing
what if
and just
let's say it's the third date and you feel like it's time to go in for a kiss, and so you're planning this ahead of time, right? Like it is the night before or the day before or something, and you're thinking, this is something I want to do. It's the right time, whatever.
right,
And so
right.
you have this tentative plan in place, and you have the experience all mapped out about how you think it's going to go, and then the date arrives, and the events are happening, and like you've pre-planned this, you can still experience the emotion of the situation, right? Even though you are
Oh,
analyzing
right,
how the
yeah,
events are playing out as they do.
right. Like, I guess I have to distinguish between, like, let's say first of all, on that third date, you're saying if I feel things out, if I sense that they are going well, I'll go in for the kiss. And certainly when you're sensing them or you're feeling them out, that is thinking, that is analytical in nature. Even though we might say it's not deep in terms of like reflecting big long-term growth oriented like life questions, but it's like it's immediate thought. So, so, I mean, I guess there's just different types and levels of thought, and so what I'm saying is you can't both experience something and have the profound, deep, higher level thoughts during that time. You're obviously always thinking, like emotions.
See, I'm not sure.
Are thought.
I'm not sure that I agree with that. Like, I think I'm on the same page, at least with the part about, generally you experience something, especially if it's something unexpected, and then you process it later, and you really appreciate whatever emotional impact it had on you later.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that absolutely happens. But I do think, like, I don't think it's fair to say that you can't analyze and experience at the same time. I think you can, and especially if the experience is a slow experience. So, like, a kiss is pretty brief. I mean, I guess depending on the kind of kiss, but the kind that we're talking about is probably pretty brief.
Yeah.
But like if it's something, for example, like skiing, then the time that you're going down a mountain slope and having fun and having that experience, like it's long enough that you can think about what's going on while you're doing it and having fun. And to me anyway, that's it's almost a positive feedback loop of enjoyment. When I'm enjoying something, I'm having an experience and a fun emotional experience, and then I think about like, holy crap, I'm having a fun emotional experience, and this is what I'm doing. It almost reinforces what's going on.
Yeah.
Have you never had that? Does that not happen to you?
Yeah. Well, I guess the answer is of course it does. In terms of like, obviously I'm having fun in moments in life, and I have this I'm aware and just appreciative that I am indeed having fun, and like you have these thoughts of like life is good, or like better capture moments like these because they don't happen all the time. All of that.
The reverse can also be true, and this I know we've talked about this a few times. I think recently even, where you're having a bad experience, and it's almost like, I mean, it's pretty obvious to you that the experience you're in is bad, but in a way you can step back almost from an objective outside of the experience position and examine what's going on and like analyze the situation. Even though you're in it having this emotional bad experience, you can step back and think like, wow, is this really happening right now? Like, are these the events that are happening to me? And it's bizarre, that feeling.
Okay, so the language you used is interesting. So in it and stepping back, and I guess that's, I mean, those are both metaphorically charged words. Like you're in it and then you're stepping back, and so it is difficult to be stepping forward in it and stepping back at the same, like literally simultaneously. I'm just saying, I'm trying to recognize there's a difference between
there is
those
a
two
difference,
things.
but I think the key component is the speed of thought. Like thought happens very fast. I mean, for all intents and purposes, instantaneously. And so like moments don't happen instantaneously. Like if you're having an argument, that's not instantaneous unless you're really good at arguing. Like that's going to be,
right.
It's going to take some time. And you can have hundreds, thousands of thoughts in the span of that one argument. And some of those thoughts might be analytical reserve, stepping back. And then other times, you're going to be focused in on the task or whatever is happening. is all I'm saying.
I
Like, I think depending on the time scale of the thing, you could either. I just think you can experience and analyze all within one event.
yeah, I don't. I guess the analysis that I'm talking about almost requires distance from the event or the experience itself. So, of course, I can be saying I'm having fun and I recognize I'm having so much fun and I can record that, like, and it does have this positive feedback loop. All of that I agree with, but the reflection of the moment, the deep analysis later is only something like that can happen with some distance. So because I'm during the experience, I'm in it with emotion. Like I'm leading with, I am having this thing. I'm having this moment, this experience, this, and of course you're thinking. Like your brain has thoughts, and it might even be some cerebral higher level stuff. But like for the most part, you're leading with the emotions and feelings and senses and experiences, and then you get to later, I guess, unpack the meaningfulness of it or the real rich lessons. So I mean, I think we're not really disagreeing. We're just kind of like,
Yeah, I think I think we mean different things when we're saying analysis. Hearing you say that, I understand what you're saying a little bit better now, and so
yeah, I guess it's a disagreement.
They're two
on
different
analysis.
things.
That's where yeah. It's
they're two different things. So like to me, that delayed unpacking that you're talking about, I can see how you could classify that as analysis. I mean,
so the skiing thing can only be appreciated in its entirety once the experience is complete, and now that you can go back it's a complete experience. You know what that ski trip was like. You know what.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, I don't think, like, I do think that we're talking about two different kinds of analysis. So what I'm talking about is very event focused. So the emotional feeling, the joy you get when you're moving fast down a slippery slope, like that feeling of fun, that pretty time restricted emotional response. That's what I'm talking about. But you are talking about, and this is appropriate considering your personality and everything, that when you're talking about emotional response, you're not thinking about that short time duration fun. You're talking about reflecting on the experience of putting yourself in an unusual situation with friends and taking a vacation time or all these other higher level concepts and tying those in and weaving those into your life and your reflection, which makes sense. And that definitely happens. So you're saying you can't do that sort of deep analysis while you're in the moment.
Yes. Thank you. I feel understood.
Yeah.
Well, it's useful to separate the two, although that's all I'm saying is it's useful to think about experiences, and it's just useful to think about the usefulness of those experiences as
okay, I agree with that. That is useful, and I think I'm still not willing to say it can't be done. Sometimes I think that the connections are so obvious and intuitive that they form immediately, and you can appreciate what's happening while it's happening deeply. But I think generally I agree with you that doesn't happen. It takes time for you to unpack the meaning of things.
Yes. Yeah.
So
time and even some, the distance creates some sensibility that you can approach it in only a way that can be approached through distance. So like the meaning of a breakup, obviously in that moment can mean something and it can be profound and deep, but 3 years later when you don't feel it anymore, you can provide an analysis that you could not in the day or the moment that it happened. You have to have that sort of, in order to get that bigger picture, highest level of meaning from it. So
well, and also like the way your mind works, like as you encounter new events and new things, it it brings up that memory of the important event, and you link those two things. So, for example, if you're talking about a breakup 3 years ago or whatever, and you're living your life and you come across an event that reminds you of something that happened in the breakup or whatever, and it affects you differently, you link those two events, and now you have more information. You've actually learned more about the meaning of that past event because of something new that happened. So because as time progresses, you form more and more of these links and you round out your idea of the thing that happened in the past, it makes sense that you can only form the most in-depth analysis and the broadest picture after some time goes by because you've built more of those links.
Yeah, there's something even beautiful about the idea of, okay, so that, again, the breakup, the old breakup, and you come across something that reminds you of the relationship or even the breakup specifically, and you feel sad. But that sadness is, I would even say, like a safe sort of sadness, a safety of a safe sadness and reflection on the events that can only happen because of that time and that distance. And so that sadness is a different brand than the brand that was thrust upon you in the throes of the actual breakup. Like that was more of like a devastation or a whatever, but certainly a different feeling. Yeah. And so when you have that reflection of it, you can remember the devastation and informed by the new sadness. Yeah.
So we're going on a little long here. I want to draw us back to Superstition briefly because I have some cool things that I want to throw out there, and we don't have to talk about them that much. You might find them interesting. So actually, like one of the things that I was going to ask, and we kind of got into it a little bit, where does superstition come from? And we kind of posited that we think that maybe some of them come from pattern recognition that doesn't have all the information, like my 131, or walking under a ladder could even be pattern recognition, if you knock enough ladders over. Some of them are, have religious roots and everything. But the question is, just meant to
socially make people do what you feel like they should, even though I can't really give a reason for it.
They might be manipulative, like not seeing the bride before the wedding or something, right?
Right. Like, well, why can't I? And then just, it's bad luck. Like it just seems like this kind of non-answer. Like we don't have a good answer, but we want this thing, and so we'll just tell you it's bad luck and
could be maybe manipulative origins. But do you think that there is any biological or I guess natural element in superstition, like at all? Like, do you think maybe there is any sort of I don't want to say psychological because it is psychological, but like, would you expect animals to have superstition?
Well, it's
like,
funny
is it an evolved behavior, I guess?
Okay, so, I was thinking of the word instincts and, like, maybe an instinct. I don't know. I'm trying to think about, like, as a kid, you're walking along and you notice the cracks and you either you intentionally select to avoid the cracks or maybe step on them. I don't know, but you start you gamify it in your mind. But why did you notice the cracks? I mean, it was a breaking of the smooth pavement, right? Like I mean, even if they're intentional, laid out in slabs, these concrete slabs, there's going to be a line there, and you don't want to step on it. And like, why? Where did that come from? Maybe that developed beforehand. Like because I noticed something different.
I see what you're saying.
I don't know. Just I noticed something different, and then my mind started to play with it. And then there's this thing that all humans were doing that too. Like, oh, you noticed the crack. I noticed the crack. Maybe it's bad luck to step on it. I don't really know. I don't know where to go with that. But
well, I think I see something you might be getting at, which is, I mean, evolutionarily speaking, it makes sense that we notice things that are different or things that stand out, either for good or bad, right? So, like. Yeah. You can imagine if we notice the bright colors of an animal, generally those are warning signs, and it might make sense for us to notice something different and behave in a particular way when we notice that different thing. And so if there is some sort of evolutionary basis, then maybe maybe that is it. Like our attention is drawn to things that are different and that stand out and that break patterns. And then I think maybe the higher parts of our brain try to assign reason to that, and that's where we get into the superstition. But the thing I wanted to mention that I found really interesting, I didn't know this. Actually, you may have heard of the guy B.F. Skinner. You remember hearing about him?
I have, yes.
The guy who did the cat, Skinner's box is the cat in the box.
Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
the cat in the box is Schrodinger. Yeah. No, B.F. Skinner did something else big though.
Anyway, Skinner also did an experiment on pigeons, and so I thought this was really cool. So he starved the pigeon. That's not the cool part. He starved the pigeon and put it in a cage, and then there's a food dispenser that would kind of drop down on a timer. But the way the pigeon behaved is that it was conditioned based on whatever it was doing when the dispenser appears, and it would try to do that behavior again to make the dispenser appear. So, for example, there was a pigeon that would, he was turning in circles when the dispenser appeared, and so, then the dispenser would go away, and when he was hungry, he would turn in circles again. He would just turn in circles to try to make the dispenser appear. And one of the birds even decided that only counterclockwise turning would make the dispenser appear, because that's the pattern that it latched onto.
Oh, wow. And isn't
that cool?
That is really cool, especially to think a pigeon has this sort of recognition and decision making. Like, oh, I recognize this happened. I'm certain. That is odd, and that is that is into superstitious category, right? Like, because
but that's what reinforces my thought that superstition is. I mean, it is pattern recognition. It's assigning meaning to things that you don't understand, but you can recognize that there may be cause and effect. You can see the pattern, and so you work within that pattern to try to predict the effect.
I think the key is vulnerability too. Like, it happened during a vulnerable. Like, food is really important. Maybe they were hungry, and if you could somehow measure their hunger, you recognize that the pigeons that were hungrier and they were doing this thing or more I just mean that.
Well, yeah,
it seems that we latch on to the
right.
meaning when we feel more vulnerable. Like, we're not busy or purpose driven or on to other things. We're just kind of flailing, and then we want meaning in our lives, and we attach it to something. Or I'm just imagining you being online as a teenage boy, and the girl you have a crush on, turns out she has an online screen name with 131, and you're like, oh, that just freaking you out. I don't know. I mean, it's totally made up, but I'm just saying that.
I think there is an aspect of, I think desperation is too strong of a word, but it's only when you're invested in the outcome that you do develop the superstition. So I think you're right about that, and that investment can vary. For animals, usually it is hunger or some base desire that fuels it. For humans, it could be something as simple as entertainment that fuels the development of a superstition. But I do think that you're right, and I think also another interesting study that I found was conducted on people. It was a psychological study, and it studied their superstitious rituals, and it found, you've probably heard this before, that superstitious people who engage their superstition actually do better than non-superstitious people that do the same activity.
If they're similarly skilled approaching a task.
Yeah, so they took some athletes, and they did this with women and men, and I forget all the details, but they made them do these simple things like putting a ball, or other ball and hole puzzles, matching and anagrams and stuff like that. And what they did was they surveyed people who had good luck charms and that sort of thing, and they did a number of different controls, but they would do superstitious people, and they would give people their lucky charm and have them do the task, and then other people they would deprive them of their lucky charm and have them do the task. And they found that the people with their good luck charm did better than the people deprived. And then they did the same thing with non-superstitious people. And the superstitious people that had their lucky charms generally did better than the other categories of people.
Yep, and the ones without it probably did worse, or were denied it. I imagine it would be those. I mean, if you believe you're charmed, you're charmed. If you believe you're cursed, you're cursed.
If I recall correctly, I didn't write this down. If I recall correctly, the people who didn't have their lucky charm present actually did about the same as the people who weren't superstitious at all.
So we
the
should
control
be
group.
superstitious then. Like
Right,
it's
well,
either
that
neutral
was-
or positive.
That was the outcome of this particular study, which I thought was interesting. But the
I would like-
reason the reason makes sense because it relieves your psychological tension, right? Like when you have your lucky charm, you feel like you're more in control and you're not vulnerable and you have self-confidence.
Right.
And that allows you to focus more on the task at hand rather than be distracted by how weak you are or how unlucky you are or whatever.
Plus, you don't really believe in like some crazy force behind it. So if you don't have it with you, you're not. If you're an adult and well adjusted, you're not panicky. You're just like So that makes sense why it wouldn't be below. Now, if they took the guy's 10-year-old lucky charm and like lit it on fire in front of him, and I think that could actually do something. But if he just happened to not have it on person, right? Like I could just see him being like, well, I mean, whatever. It's not like
I think what they did is
magic. So
they brought him into the room, asked him some questions about their lucky charm and stuff, and then for some of the people, they said, okay, come into this room and do this task and bring your lucky charm. And then for others, they examined the charm in one room and then left it in the room and had them come into the other room to do the task. And so they were separated from it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense. So I should get myself a lucky charm.
I guess so. And believe it works. But you don't have to believe in some cosmic force making it work. Or I guess like
you kind of do, but it's like it's toying that line of it being playful. I guess I mean, I indulge the playfulness. I don't walk under. I avoid.
I mean, I guess like if your job required you to listen to music or like review audio or something, then setting the volume on your desired numbers would make you better at your job.
Yeah. Well, interesting.
Well, you're just weird in the way you use that superstition, and so actually it wouldn't make you any better. It would just make you worse if you had it set to.
It's the worst way I could have done it.
Yeah, you're a terrible superstitious person.
I'm not super satisfied if it's divisible by 10. I'm just neutral. No, I forgot what I was going to say. I don't know, but like. That's actually why ritual exists, I guess. That's why like institutions have rituals that kind of let us collectively participate in some form of a little thing that's nice, and you do it because ritual, and there's a relationship between ritual and superstition, I think. And so
I think that's fair to say. I think ritual is probably a little bit bigger than just that, though.
Agreed. I know, and
that's a larger topic.
Unpacking another Pandora's worms or whatever. So
yep. Opening another can of Pandora's.
Yeah, definitely.
As they say. All right.
Well,
that was a nice podcast, man. Good job.
Nice podcasting. Do. Bye.
Podcast.
We got to come up with something better. Bye.
Bye.